If you're part of a cycling family, or maybe you're an avid e-biker with a gravel bike, road bike, XC hardtail, full sus enduro for the right occasion, if so, you probably know the struggle of navigating that garage obstacle course where bikes seem to take up all the space. A little organization goes a long way, and that's why today we're checking out the Store Your Board Freestanding G-Rack. It has two options that hold up to 5 or 8 bikes in a compact footprint. Let's dive in and see if it's the right solution for you. Hey everybody, I'm Griffin with Electric Bike Report. If you're into e-bikes, accessories, or just industry news, make sure to tap that notification bell to stay up to date. All right, so let's get into some highlights of the Store Your Board Freestanding G-Rack system. So again, this is available in either 5 or 8 bike configurations, and it can hold a lot, but keep in mind that the 300-pound weight limit if you're mixing in heavier e-bikes. Now, I found it helpful to think about the rack in 2 ways: organization or storage. So if you're maxing it out with 5 bikes like we have here, the accessibility is a little tight, but if you're storing them for the winter or just trying to clear garage space, that doesn't really matter. It definitely takes up far less room than lining up 5 bikes along the wall. And if you'll be regularly swapping bikes in and out, it's more realistic to think of it as a 3 or maybe 4 bike solution. The compact footprint means that the inside bikes can be a little harder to reach, but with a 3 or 4 setup, you can usually grab any of them without moving the others first. And overall, it's a smart way to keep multiple bikes in a relatively small area. You'll want to account for the extra buffer beyond the listed dimensions for the handlebars that stick out on the sides, or just the bike that as it comes forward off of the frame, but it's still a huge space saver. Lastly, I like that it's freestanding. You can secure it to a wall if you want extra reinforcement, but the fact that it stands on its own and is fairly easy to move once assembled is actually really impressive. All right, so let's cover some of the basic need to knows about this system. For the 5 bike, it comes in dimensions of 46 long, 36 wide, or 81 high, while the 8 bike just changes slightly on the height with 78 inches. Now, in terms of max weight per hook, you are looking at 60 pounds total for either rack, and both of them have a 300-pound total payload capacity. Now, the rack itself, like I mentioned, is fairly lightweight at only 34 pounds. And in terms of the bikes that it can accommodate, you're looking at tires up to 2 3/4 inches wide, but there is an optional hook upgrade you can purchase that can accommodate tires up to 4.5 inches. Now, the assembly overall was actually much simpler than I had anticipated. The box was so compact and light, I thought we might have actually received the wrong one, but it all came together pretty quickly once we opened it up. Really, you just kind of like line up the frame bars, you get them all bolted into place, and you choose your crossbar height, and then you set your hook spacing. Now, when it comes to that, you can go equal measurement across or adjust spacing tighter or wider depending on the size of the bikes you're carrying. The rack itself is powder-coated steel and aluminum with rubber-coated hooks to help protect paint and avoid scratches. And even though it's relatively light with that 34 pounds, it feels really solid when built. And it's backed by a lifetime warranty. As long as you respect the weight limits, you can expect long-term durability. As of filming, the 5 bike rack retails for $279, and the 8 bike option runs about $100 more. Now, with the ongoing tariff talks happening, it's worth checking the pricing link down below for up-to-date information. All right, so let me break down what I like about this rack and a few of the drawbacks that you'll want to keep in mind. So starting off with the good points first, it can hold, of course, 5 to 8 bikes, which is a huge deal. Look, we've got dozens of bikes around here, so trust me, I know the pain of tripping over them, and this rack solves that problem in a pretty small footprint. Plus, since it doesn't need to be anchored, it's light enough to pick up and move it if you need to reposition it. Now, assembly, again, it's quick and painless. One person can knock it out in under half an hour, and it's faster if you've got an extra set of hands too. I like the adjustability, the shorter wheelbases like kids' bikes or different setups. It's flexible enough to fit a range of different bikes by raising or lowering that crossbar. And finally, the lifetime warranty is a major win. It is always nice to have peace of mind. Now, in terms of some of the drawbacks, I'd frame this as great for storing 5 bikes or great for organizing 3 to 4 that you rotate often. It's not ideal for doing both at the same time. If you're constantly pulling different bikes down, the 8 bike version may give you the spacing you need. And while the rack supports 60 pounds per hook, maxing it out means lifting those bikes high enough to hang by the front and rear wheel. Now that can be a tall order for some people. Like my wife, for example, she's 5'5" and fairly petite. She definitely struggle with hefting a heavy e-bike into place on higher hooks when she has to hook that rear wheel. So something to just keep in mind. All right, so with the rack assembled, let's go ahead and demo how you would use this, and I'll share a few tips that I figured out along the way. And the first, well, fairly obvious one if you're an e-biker, if you're able to remove that battery, it's gonna make things a little bit easier just to shed some of that weight, so I definitely recommend that you do that. But let's go ahead and grab our first bike. And then for a bike like this, I just like to wheel it up into position just underneath that first hook there, get it fairly close, grab that rear brake so you can bring the bike back up on the rear wheel, bring it forward a little bit more, you can re-engage that brake if you need to, and then you can get your leg underneath the saddle to just kind of help raise it up and into the hook. And then it's really just as simple as that for getting it this way. Now, if you are maxing out and using all 5 hooks, you're not going with like a 3-hook setup or something like that, in order to really make things fit and not be jostling too much for space with the handlebars, you do need to start inverting it and go with a handlebars down approach. Now for this, it's a little bit trickier as you're not able to just roll it up and use your leg to help lift off the saddle into place. That method won't work here, so I would cherry pick and go with your lightest bikes for the 2nd and 4th hook positions just to make it a little bit easier. So grabbing one of the carbon bikes that we have here, pretty much just pick that one up and then slot it right into place alongside it on this hook here. And as you can see, you got 2 bikes hanging just like that. Okay, now a couple of other tips that I've kind of picked up when using this rack. Again, if you are using all 5 hooks, the inside 3 slots are getting pretty tight. You can't really get to just like the middle bike without bumping into pedals and handlebars of the other bike. Makes it hard to pull one off. So you'd have to either remove all the bikes leading up to it or something like that. Now for me, I would recommend that you put the bikes you're going to use the most on outside hooks. Now for these hooks, you can actually have them flipped to be spaced or to be right or left facing. So for this one on the left side, I have that facing out left. So it's just a little bit easier to pull it off that way instead of hooking it back around. And the right side one, I of course have facing right. Again, lighter ones or smaller ones, kid bikes, probably best stored in the middle just for getting things moved around. Also, in terms of spacing, when it comes to this right side here, where you have your drivetrain side, just make sure that you're very careful that you don't bang the derailleur up on the side here. I haven't had any issues with that. I got close a couple of times, so just one of those things you definitely want to look out for. And then if you do have kids' bikes or something with shorter wheelbases, again, you can raise this crossbar up to make sure that it's making contact with all of the tires. I would definitely do that if you don't want that kind of swinging forward and banging up and marking the walls or anything like that. Look, bikes taking up too much space is a problem that a lot of us bike types deal with, and the Store Your Board Freestanding G-Rack is a practical, reliable solution. What I love is just how straightforward it is. You don't need to be some organizational guru to figure it out. It gives you a simple, dedicated place to park your bikes, whether that's for day-to-day use or long-term storage. And the fact that it stands on its own without needing to drill into your walls makes it even better. As long as you're comfortable lifting your bikes into place and you're okay with a more compact setup, this is a solid system for getting organized and taking back some garage space. That's it for this review. Drop your questions or comments down below. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one.